They're different ones, but I have done it before.
Oh, so on that.
The top example is the same.
Yeah.
Right, ready?
Uh-huh.
Sure. Yep. Right. 26 letters of the alphabet, 7
Days of the week.
days of the week, 13.
I don't know.
Stripes in the United States flag.
Oh.
3
Wheels on a tricycle?
wheels on a tricycle, 12
Months of the year.
right, 8
Tons on a,
in the ocean.
8 tides on the ocean?
8 tentacles on an octopus.
Tentacles on octopus, good. 29 D and F and an LY. Good. 13 L and a BD.
13 lines and a.
13 loaves and a left.
Baker's dozen.
64 what?
We're all on the same one.
Sounds pretty good. That's a loaded cinnamon bun. I like it. Squares on a chessboard.
Oh.
That is, I would have never guessed that.
Everybody?
Plays chess anymore.
For a total of 64. All right, cool. Do we have any questions? We'll have some time to do the assignment today, I think. Which will be good. Assignment. My assignment is due Thursday, 2 days from today. Your next midterm 2 is 2 weeks from today. So, say the 3rd.
Yes.
All right, so that'd be the 17th. 14 plus the week. Oh.
It's a week from today.
Maybe it's not that far. Or maybe I was wrong.
Next week is.
Because we're going to teach today, I'm going to teach today, and Thursday, and then I'll teach again, and then there's a review. All right, I'll fix it. It's wrong. I think it's 2 weeks from today. You could push it back to weeks. If it doesn't change on Canvas, then that's when it is. But otherwise, I'm pretty sure I must just have that date. All right. Last class we talked about arrays, right? Arrays allow us to group a bunch of data of the same type together, right? So same name, right, for all my variables, but they're all located at different indices, right? Indexes, right? Indices start at what value?
0.
0, right? And they always go to size minus 1, right? 1 less. So if my array is of size 10, right? My indices are 0 through what? Good. Right. So today we're going to look at how we can pass arrays into functions, right, through parameters. So we're going to look at that. And then we're going to talk about something totally different with file I/O, which is input and output, right? So reading stuff from files, output stuff. We'll kind of show how that works, which works a lot similar to how we do it with users with CN and CF. So hopefully we'll be able to take what we know and apply that to files. Good? All right. Let's talk about this. every spot, right, every box in the array is called an element, right? So if I have my array, right, and I call it A, and it's got a couple boxes, right? We said first index is 0, last index would be
4 or 3. Sorry.
good, right? Right? The way I access things is I say A at some location, right? A at 0, right? And this thing is called an element. All right? The name of your array, the square brackets, and the index of what you want to access or where you want to access is called an element, right? Now, if I said that this array held integers, right, then A bracket 0 is synonymous with any integer variable, right? So A bracket 0 is the same thing as saying like X, right? Because both of those hold one integer. Does that make sense? Which means that you use A bracket 0 just like you would use any other integer variable, right? We can assign values to it. We can output it, right? Today we're going to see that you can pass it into a function, right? If the function has a parameter that takes a single integer, you can pass in an element of the array and that value will get passed in. Does that make sense? Right? Just trying to say that basically, right, this variable X, if it's an integer, this variable, right, element, A bracket 0 are both integer variables. This is straight. Right? So if I have this, right, we're going to create an object, right, create some other variables, I, N, and A bracket 10, right? So I have how many variables here?
3.
3 double variables, but how many doubles can I store? 12, right? 12. 10 with the array plus N plus what? 12 total, right? And so I could call a function on my object and pass an N, right? N is a double, right? So the double gets calculated and passed in to my function, plug into the parameter, right? But I can also pass in A bracket 3, because A bracket 3 is also just a what? It's just a double, right? So N and A bracket 3 both hold a single double value, so they can be passed into all functions that take a single double value. Easy enough? All right, let's talk about what else we can do with arrays. So not only can you pass in a single element of the array, and it works the same, but you can actually pass in an entire array into a function. So I'm not passing in one value, I'm passing in multiple values, right? 5 values, 10 values, 20 values, right? Whatever size the array is. All right, and to do that, we need a special parameter called an array parameter. So array parameters allow us to have a parameter that accepts not just a single value, but an array of values. All right, so it looks like this, right? Here's a function called my function, right? And notice what it's saying is the base type of the array is double, and that is the name of my array, A square brackets. Is there a size of the square brackets? No, which is nice because this array, or this function can take an array of any size, right? So long as the array's base type is what?
Double.
Double, right? As long as it's double, you can pass in an array of any size. That being said, you can't create an array that's size 0 or negative. I hope that makes sense. You can't have negative, right, numbers of elements, right? No way. And then making an array of size 1 is just like you're creating a variable, so there's no real point. So really, array should always be size 2 or greater. Otherwise, you can regular variable. When you call a function, you don't pass in the square brackets, you're passing in the entire array, so you just pass in the name of it. Right? So there's my array called score of size what? 5. And when I call my function, all I pass in is what? Score. Score is the name of the array, right? I'm not passing in an element, so I'm passing in the entire array. So score is the name of my array, so I pass that in. Right? When that gets passed in, basically, right, A is score. Does that make sense? Because score got passed in. So the way array parameters work are a little bit different than all the other parameters we've used. Okay? Whatever you do to the array parameter affects the array that was passed in. So if I add values to the array parameter, then in fact that original score array changes. Right? That hasn't been the way it's working. Right? When I call a function, it's just the value that gets passed over. If I change stuff, it doesn't affect like the stuff in main. But now it links it up. So array parameters will link them up. We'll see an example of that here in a second. Alright, so that's what that note says. So let's take a look at this. And go from there. Right now, we are in array parameter.cpp. That's where we're at. So I'm going to bring in a simple class just so I can get a function, right? Since we need to practice these. So there's a class called myClass, right? Public function called fillup. Fillup takes an array of what? Ints. An array of ints. And how big can that array be?
Oh.
Is there a size that array has to be? No, right? It can be any size. So you'll notice that the second parameter is a parameter for what? For size, right? So if you're going to pass in an array into a function, your function should probably also know how big the array is that was passed in. And so a lot of times we'll pass in the array and also we'll pass in the what?
The size.
So we know how big it is. Right? Function is called fillup, so probably what is it going to do?
Fill up.
Fill it up with values, right? And you wrote that in your last lab. You wrote how to do that, but let's just do it again. My class, fill up. Right? If I want to get to every element in an array, what do I use?
N+1 or whatever.
You're on the right track. We use the loop, right? What kind of loop?
For loop.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the user to just, right, enter scores, right? Enter size scores. Right. And then for loop, I starts at what?
0.
I goes less than
Size.
size or size minus 1? Which one?
Size.
Just size, right?
Yeah,
'Cause
just size.
we don't want to get to size, which is why we just go less than size. You have to go less than or equal to size minus 1. All right? And if we want to go to every element, then we're going to increment I by what?
1.
Just by 1. Now, just for review, in this loop, right, we're dealing with A bracket I, right? We're dealing with A bracket I because the first iteration of the loop I is 0, so we're dealing with A bracket 0. But in the second iteration of the loop, we're dealing with A bracket 1, A bracket 2, so on and so forth. Does that make sense? Why it's I, not 0, not size, right? 0 doesn't change. No. Does size change? But not here, right? So in the loop, we want to use the value that's changing, otherwise we'll just be dealing with the same spot in the array. Now, if I want to get a value from the user, what do I use? Right, so CN, right? And then on the right side is always the variable that we want to store it into, right? Is A bracket I a variable?
Yeah.
Yeah, right, we call it an element, but right, it is, in this case, an integer variable. So we'll enter however many, right, scores that the array size is, we'll loop through it, and we'll get all those scores from you. Right, you had to get, what, 10 scores or something like that?
Mm-hmm.
Make sense a little bit? Any questions on this? Now, once again, it's a parameter, right? So A could be anything, right? And so to use it, I need to do something in main, right? And then call the function. So let's do that. Let's go up to main and then call the function. Right, so I need to create my object. All right, I've got to create my array. Int score bracket 5. Num scores is 5 as well. And then I can do object dot fill up. Now the fill up function takes, right? The fill up function takes an integer array and a regular integer, right? And so first I'm going to pass in my integer array, which is just named score, and then I'm going to pass in, right, the size, which is num score. Once again, we're saying go to the fill up function, right, and bring along this array and that value. right? So the score array becomes A, and size becomes num scores, which is 5. Does that make sense?
Could you write one that takes everything from the user instead of us starting at 5?
What do you mean?
In score 5, so you have an array of 5.
Uh-huh.
So what if we don't know the array? That's the user's job to give us the array, and we just write the program to run that.
Well, that's kind of what this is, right?
Right.
Here you didn't know what the array was.
Right.
This would be the user doing something for it.
Okay, so there's 2 different ways. You're doing 2 different.
Right, same array, but in main I'm creating an array and then I'm passing it over to this function and it's acting on that array.
Okay.
But I could create another array and call the function again.
Okay.
Right. But theoretically it's filled up, so now I can loop through it and output it. So it's going to look the same, right? Int I equals 0. Right, I less than num scores. Right, I plus plus. And I can say see out, right, the score is, and I'll put my score array at I. So theoretically, this is going to pass the score array into this function, which will fill it up. And then I'm going to loop again, and I'm going to output all the scores. So hopefully, all the values that I filled it up with should be the values that are outputted, right? Not garbage or anything like that. So it says enter 5 scores, so we'll type a couple scores in here. All right, and there were my scores. Right. The nice thing is that it doesn't care, right? My function doesn't really care how big the array is, right? It's going to fill up every array, right? No matter what size, so long as it's an array of integers.
But you limited it to 5.
Because I made the array of size 5. Because arrays are fixed size.
Right, but how can I get the user to tell the program how many, what if it's a class of 30 people?
Right, so that's where we get to dynamic arrays.
So we're getting there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once we get there, we need.
That's what I thought we were doing now, I'm sorry.
No.
My bad.
Yeah.
That's what my question was, so I'm sorry if that.
So I can do int new scores, right, bracket 30. Right, and then I can say object dot fill up. Right, now I can pass some new scores, and I can pass them 30. So we can't make the array dynamic, but the function will act on any size array that you pass. No, because to create the array, we have to use a constant.
It's kind of tricky, I guess, for some of our questions, so you get where it's coming from. Maybe is that when we did JavaScript last semester, we were able to like do.
Well, JavaScript arrays are crazy. So
yeah, no, like you could do
anything
anything in it. So it was just kind of, I'm trying to figure out.
We're a little more limited.
Right, I'm trying to gauge where that's at.
Yeah, so they're not dynamic. You can't add, right? You can't have it be made up of all different types. You can't just grow and shrink it.
Okay.
There are things in C++ that will allow you to do more of that, but we're gonna get there. We're working on kind of the basic array is like the fundamental data structure.
Right.
That a lot of the things are built on, so we want to get that down and then work on it.
I want to respect the process. I just, for some reason,
No,
I
I
thought
get it.
that's where we were going.
Right.
So.
They're like, JavaScript, you can do like everything that we've been doing. It's super easy, right? We're going to talk about nuances. All right, so here I would enter 5 scores, but then it's going to ask me to enter 30 scores, right? All right, allow me to use the same function to fill up multiple arrays, right? The big key is that when you pass the array in, whatever you do to the parameter affects the array that was passed in, right? They're like linked up in a sense. All right, and so pretty cool. All right, pass it in and do stuff. So now if you need to write your input into your functions, if it's going to be a lot of values, then maybe you want to use an array instead of like 10 parameters. So 10 parameters, maybe just one array that you pass. It'll be fun. Questions?
Would there be a way to like write it where it defaults to 0 if there wasn't an input put in?
Yeah, but
That way, like they can put whatever they want. You can just make it like 1,000.
You could, right? But then you're just gonna waste that space. Like, I kind of make it big enough, no matter what.
Right. Like even though you're trying to make one size fits all. It's...
Probably what I would do, it would
I'm
be
so
pretty,
concerned about that.
right? It'd be pretty easy to do. You could just, right? Like even this array, everyone get that it's size 30?
Yeah.
Right? But I could have passed it for size, I could have just passed it 10. Right? And then when it filled up, it would only fill up the first 10 spots. The other 20 would be, right? Garbage. You just never would use them, right? So you could make an array of size 100, ask the user how big the class size is, so long as it's under 100, your program will work.
Word.
You just use that new size as the size. You just have to waste space.
Sweet.
We'll learn how to not waste space. Alright. Let's
We'll never
segue into
learn
something totally
anything
different, and that's file I/O. So we're gonna talk about file I/O as far as like the terms that I'm gonna use. We'll see the basic syntax, and then we'll move on from that. So one of the big I/O terms we have in C++ is what is a stream. Right? We've seen the word stream where?
The top.
I/O stream, right? So I/O stream, right? So stream can be defined as a flow of characters or really a flow of data, right? A stream, right? It flows. We have this flow of characters. Now those streams can either be input streams or output streams, right? Input streams is the flow of characters or data into your program, right? Input. And an output stream is the flow of characters or data what? Out of your program. Right? And I'm defining input streams as you get data from a user. We know how to do that in CN, right? And then today I'm going to teach you how to get it from a file.
That's
right?
included.
A fixed stored thing. Right? And an output stream, data flowing out, right? It can also go to the screen, right? The console, right? See out, console output, or it can go to a file. Make sense? A little bit? All right. So C and C are both streams. No, those would be plain text stuff. The extension doesn't matter. It'll just write plain text stuff. Right? So C and C are both streams. They're defined in what? I/O stream. So when I include I/O stream, I get CN and I get CL. So we can now, I'm going to teach you today, create other streams that are not CN and CL, and we're going to define those streams as being streams that work with files. So we'll have these streams that work with files, we'll read from files, and we'll output to files. C and C are predefined. We call them global because they're just everywhere. I included them, but then I have to like create an object like that. For the files, we'll have to create them, and that's because every file stream attaches to one file. So if you wanted like 3 files open at the same time, you can. That being said, I'm going to name them FIN and FL. Try to remind us what they do. Right, so FIN could be defining an input from a file. I'll teach you how to do that syntactically, but just imagine, right? It is, right? And FL could be defined output to a file. The nice thing is, everyone good? They're named the same, right? And so because they're named the same, they work the same. FIN uses the extraction operator, right? CL uses the insert, or FL, right, is the insertion operator. Great, that symbol's not the same. They work exactly the same. We kind of set them up, and then they do it.
So they're not, are they global like C and CL?
They're not. We have to create them.
But it's like convention to use them?
I don't know if it's convention that those are the 2 words that people use. I've seen them just called like output stream or input stream.
Okay.
Stuff. But my convention is this. So I always have to say FIN because I can't just say FN.
I mean, you can, but
FIN. We're not going to call it fin, or we're not going to call it FN. It's FIN.
leave that to Boyd.
Fin and found. We got cow, out, fin, and sin. How does that sound?
Word.
All right, go tell your friends. Right, so imagine, right, that we've created a variable called the number that is a what? An integer, right? And I can say FIN, 2 greater than symbols, right? Extraction operator, and then the variable I want to store it in, right? We just wrote that in our loop, except instead of FIN, it was what? CN, right? CN meaning that it's getting it from where? The user, right? And FIN saying it's getting it from a file. Now it works the same. Think about what do we do when we get input from the user? We type something and we do what?
Enter.
Hit enter. Imagine that you're writing a file. You could type something and hit what? Enter, and type something out and hit what? Enter. So the file, right, could have a bunch of data in it, right? And every time I call FIN, right, it's going to read the next thing to like an enter, right? it technically breaks on white space, so either a space, a tab, or a new line. Right? It just happens to be that the data is already predefined as opposed to you typing it on demand. That makes sense a little bit?
So it's just like the file could just consist of values that you'll need.
And our first one will just do that, and then we'll do other stuff.
Like that stuff you were showing us where that number keeps showing up everywhere, then it's make it a constant.
Yeah, a little bit.
Kind of like that kind of thing.
Right, output, Ryan said that extraction operator, we use the insertion operator, right? About the number is, and then I'm outputting a variable, the number, right? Because it's out, it's not going to the console, right, to the terminal, what we see. It's going to a file. We'll learn how to connect them to files. Sound good? Sounds kind of exciting, maybe? Right? File I/O terms, right? We have input streams and output streams, but when we read from files, that's an input stream, right? So we read from files, input streams, and we write out to files, those are our output streams. So files take the next step of having reading and writing. We read from files, take data in. We write to files, right, take that out. Right? When we work with these files, really we're going to simulate what CIN and COUT does, right? So if you use CIN statements, you're going to get input, user's going to type something, hit enter, then they're going to type something else and hit enter. It won't like go back to the first input and take it again. Does that make sense? It's all very linear. And so when I set up a file, it'll take the first input and then the next input and then the next. It's not going to magically jump to the top again. It's going to slowly work its way through all your inputs until it gets to the end of the file. Right? Output the same way, right? When I write out to a file, the first thing I write out will be the first line, right? Then the next thing will be the next thing, and the next thing will be the next thing. I'm not going to jump after 3 things back to the top and do it all over. Which is how COUT works, right? We don't like write stuff out and then magically insert data way above what I'd already output. Not any classes in those files, right? We can clear it, right? The terminal is a way for us to clear it. But we can't just like put random data in random spots. It's all for output. You can jump through files, but it's a little more complicated. Which is why we're doing what we already know. So if we start reading a file, we don't go back and start reading it again. Once we write to a file, we don't go back and change it. There are ways to do that. Now, file I/O is not built in, right? Just like CIN and COUT aren't built in as well, right? So to use them, we use Appending for file stream. So we include it, right? And then in main, we have to declare our stream. So the weird thing is, when I include IO stream, I just get CIN and COUT, right? With file stream, I have to include it, and then I have to actually create the stream. So I get 2 new types, OF stream and IF stream, for output file stream and input file stream. Those are my types. And from that, I make objects, the streams that I can do so. So we have an STD IF stream, input file stream, right, which is what I call FIN, right? And then output, I have OF stream for output file stream, which I call FOut, right? IF stream is the type, OF stream is the type, FIN and FOut are the names of my objects. Right? So do they have to be called FOut and FIN? No, they can be called anything. Right? That's just what I call it because they act just like CIN and COUT. Make sense? Right, it says think of them as types because guess what? They're types, right? They're classes. But someone else has defined and we just get to use them, right? So really all I'm doing today is I'm just teaching you the interface if you want to connect it to what we've already learned. I'm teaching you the interface of file streams, right? And you get to then create them and use them. So just creating a stream is not enough because since we're working with files, you have to connect them to an actual file, right? So we're going to open a file, right, for either reading or for writing. Right, so I say FIN.open, and then in the parentheses, and then I pass it a string, which is the name of the file. Now it's going to look for that file in the same directory as where you're at right now. Right, so this says, right, open nfile.txt for reading, right? Because I'm using my input file stream, so it's opening it for reading. Right, I could also, right, well, I guess I'm going to talk more about this. I can now read from it, create some variables, right, use the extraction operator to pull in those values. And that's what our example will be here in a second. Right? To output it, out.open, right, open a file for what? Output, for write. Right? And so because of that, now I can, right, open the file and then I can output to the file something. So you're not going to see some text on the console, you're going to see it in the what? The file named outfile.txt. Does it have to be named outfile.txt? No, you can make a thing. Right? That's the file name that will be created on the file system, right? And it will exist. Now there is one thing that you have to watch out for when you open files for writing, is that it will either create or replace the file if it exists. So if you have a file with a lot of data in it, and then you try to open it for writing, it will actually erase all the data in it and start over again. Okay? Yeah, right? So don't ever open your .cpp files. I've had students do that on accident. Right? Open main.cpp, right? So they're like writing main, and then they run the program once, and then it deletes everything from main.
Oh, no.
Right? If you open the file for writing, it just deletes. So be careful. Right? Just use like .txt, right, for text files. Now, you open a file, you write to it, you read from it. When you're done, you're going to have to close them as well. So you normally close the file when you're done working with them. So .open opens the file, and .close closes the file. Now they know which file they're connected to, right? So you don't say .close in the name of the file. You just say, right, close the input stream or close the output.
Do these become things we add next, like along with return 0, or are these like when you need them?
Before return 0, yeah. And it doesn't, like in our examples, because they'll be so short, they'll very much be the last thing before return 0.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be I might want to open a file for reading, do the reading, close the file. You may want to open the file, maybe the same file for writing, close the file.
Mm-hmm.
Open it again for reading, right? Or you might open one file for reading, close it, and then open a different file for reading and close it. As long as you're not reading or writing simultaneously, you can use the same stream. Open a file, do stuff, close it, and then open another file, right? Now, if you're trying to read from 2 files at the same time, you need 2 input streams, right? So you would have to have like fin1 and fin2. But if you're not doing it simultaneously, then you can just use the same stream. Yes. Yeah. 1 input stream per open file added. All right, let's look at this. So you will notice, once I delete everything, that I actually have more includes than normal right now, right? I have my F stream include, right? And I have 2 using statements, std OF stream and std IF stream, right? If you don't do that, then down below when you create the streams, right, you have to say std : IF stream or OF stream. Right. I don't know if we'll be able to read this or not. Okay. I'm just going to delete some of the stuff that we already have. So I'm going to create a file, right, called data.txt. Right, I'm going to open it, and I'm just going to put some data in. Right, so I'm just going to say 3 and 6 and 2 and 5 and 8 and
2.
Everyone get what my file looks like? A single integer, right? If you want to think of it in programming terms, then a new line character, single integer, new line character, single integer. Right? Which, if we were inputting values into our program, right, that's what we type. Single integer, hit enter, another integer, hit enter.
So this is a text string of characters.
They're technically characters, sure.
So, for instance, if you were to check what the type and value, you have to use different.
No, because they're characters in the sense of it's a text file, but not related to C++. Right? When I get input from a file, right, I'm going to say input it into this variable, right? And if the number, right, the data matches what can go in that type, it'll just pull it. If it doesn't match, then it'll break. Which is why, like on the console, right, anytime you take integers for input, you type a number, you hit enter. Well, technically, you're not typing a number, you're typing a character on the keyboard. But it's changing. So it's all automatic. But no, that's why I'm trying to impress that. It does the exact same thing as CL and CN. We don't have to do that with CL and CN. So we're good. All right, there's my lovely file. Right, and so then here, right, I can create, right, my input stream and my output stream. So I'm going to create my input stream, IS stream, FIN, OF stream, FOut. Right, so step one is to declare, right, so you could call this like our declaration, right, declare the streams. Right. Next step would then be to connect them to their files. Right. And what function do we use for that?
The fin dot.
Right. Fin dot open. Right. The open function. Right. Everyone good? Open is technically a member function of right IS stream. Right. Right. The name of my file, if you remember, was just data.txt. Right, I'm going to fout.open as well. Right, we're going to just call this one output.txt. Now, did I create a file called output.txt?
Nope.
Right, if we look in the folder, it's not there. But when you open a file, it will either create or replace the file that exists. It will either create or replace the file that exists. So I don't need it. Yes, when I run the program. Right? Not right after I compile, but when I run the program, the file. I'm going to create some variables X, Y, and Z, right? Terribly named, but I think it'll get the point across. Right? So I can say FIN, which says read from the file data.txt, right? Put the first thing to white space, right, in the variable called X. And then we can actually chain them. You can say put the next thing to white space in the variable Y, and put the next thing to white space into the variable Z. Which basically means that it is going to your file. It is picking the first thing to white space, and it's putting it into the X variable, right? So 3 will go into the X variable, and then 6, right? Because 6 is the next thing to white space, will go in the what? The Y variable, and 2 will go into the Z variable. Right, and so I'm only pulling in 3 values. So 5, 8, and 1 are still in the file. And if I pulled more values in, right, then it would pull in 5 or 8 or 1.
How would you target line 5?
From the get-go? But the only way that we know how to do that is I would loop 4 times and just pull in stuff and not do anything. So we can't jump. So if I wanted to target the 5th thing, I'd have to basically pull in the first 4 things and just throw them on.
So this isn't as handy as it could be?
No.
Because we don't know how to do it, or because it literally that's something you can't do?
We don't know how to do it.
Okay.
I'm going to give you more on Wednesday. I always do. You guys know.
In a couple of weeks.
In a couple weeks.
You're not learning anything now,
Wednesdays
you'll
from
learn
now.
it soon.
Just learn what I'm teaching you now. Okay? And then I'll teach you more stuff. You learn that then too. All right, so I get F out, right? The sum of the numbers are, right? And I do this, right? X plus Y plus Z. Now, where did I write this data to?
The out file.
A new file called output.txt. So I'm not going to see this in the console, right? So it's nice then, right, to do something like cout, right, all done, or something, right? Let the user know that something did happen, right? Otherwise, my program would just run and just say process exited code 0. Let's run it. Since I typed everything correctly, it says all done. Now, in my workspace, I now have a file called what?
Output.
Output.txt, which says that the sum of the numbers are what? 11. Right? Which 6 plus 3 is 9 plus 2 is 11. if this file had a bunch more text in it, right? Isn't that great writing? Right? Has a bunch more text in it, but all I have to do is run my program, and whatever, my text is all gone, right? Because when I said .open, it actually deleted all the data in the thing, in the file, and then when I appended, right, it added some data. Make sense? Questions there? Right, so if of this. Yeah, you probably want to do that. I could, right? I could do an FIN X, and then I could see out X.
What did it do?
What do you do? Why? Can I do that? Is that allowed? Right? It would know what.
It like said this though.
What? So if I look at my file, data.txt, right? I already pulled in the first three values, everyone agree? So the next value that gets pulled in is what? 5. So I'm expecting my code to output what? 5. Right? This is the next thing in line. Once again, showing that when I take an input, it just starts at the top one and then moves down my file. Or over if there's white. Alright, I get that. Sound good? Now, probably, a lot of times you don't want to overwrite the file, right? You want to add to it, but not overwrite it. And so I'm going to teach you how to open a file for appending, meaning that it will start writing at the end of the file, which is probably better overall. All right? And then I'm going to teach you how to open files a little bit more easily. So appending allows me to, right, add data to the end of a file as opposed to the beginning. So when I open a file, I can open it in append mode, which says don't erase, but instead, right, start writing at the end, after the last character in the file. Right, super easy, right? Same thing, create my output stream, open my file, but this time comma and add in append mode, stdios. Right, and that says open the file data.txt for writing, but open it in append mode, so do not overwrite what's in it, but just start writing stuff at the end. Does that make sense? Yeah, they're all weird. Right? Just so many, right? Remember, too cold to scope resolution operator, right? So, right. Yeah, well, because this is a value that's being passed in as an argument to that open function. Right? App is part of iOS, which is part of the SDK. Probably something good to just copy and paste. Are we good with that? That's append mode. I'll show you that in a second. Right. You can also combine the syntax for the declaration and opening, so you can basically initialize your string at creation time. Right. So this is what I just taught you like 5 minutes ago. ISstream fin.open, the file you want to open. Are we good with that? Right. You can also type it like this: ISstream fin, and then just pass in the file that you want to open. Right. This says create an input stream, and this says now connect it to this file. Right. This says create an input stream and connect it to the file. Right. You can write 2 lines of code. You can write 1 line of code. I don't really care which one you want to do. Obviously, you know which one I'm going to do, but I don't care which one. All right, you guys ready for me to test your knowledge a little bit of what we learned prior to this? All right. We said ISstream is a what? So it's a stream, but overall it's a type. Everyone good with that? It's a type. Which means if these are types, what are these?
Variables.
Variables, but because the types are classes, we call them what?
Function.
Objects. Right? We call them objects, right? They're objects. Your test, you guys like 50% on your test. Right?
We're winning.
Good. But you'll notice that, right, when I create my object, I do it differently, right? Because when an object is created, what gets called? Yeah, say it louder. Right? The constructor gets called when an object is created. Everyone agree?
Mm-hmm.
Right? This one's called the default constructor, right? Create my stream. I didn't give it any value, so just initialize it by default, whatever that is. Right? This one says create my stream, but use this as what you should connect it to, right? You should kind of in your heads realize that probably in this overloaded constructor, it just calls what function?
Open.
The open function. Does that make sense? This constructor calls the open function, just like in your coding assignment, most of your constructors just call the other functions that you wrote. Right? Your overloaded constructor, your first one just calls set meters. Right? Your second one calls set distance. Because they do the same thing, right? These two things do the same thing, right? One does it only on initialization, creation time, and one does it any time that you want. And so, all right, we're taking some of the concepts that we learned from classes and kind of seeing them played out in the interface of what we have. Does that make sense a little bit? All right, F-outs and OS streams the same way, right? You can do it on 2 lines, or you can do it on what? 1 line. What goes away, right, is the dot open part, right? And we take the argument and just put it right there, right? Pass it into the constructor. And if we're going to do append mode, which I just taught you, right? We'll just pass both things in, right? This says open, right, outval.txt for appending. This also says open outval.txt for appending. Right? They both mean the same thing. Now, once you do this, though, right, and you close a file, then you have to use .open, right? Because this syntax only works on creation, right? Constructors only get called once. Right, so later on, I'd have to use .open if I wanted to. Make sense? Questions there? All right. Let's get in. So we're going to add a little text to here. Okay, 1, 2, buckle my what? Shoe. 3, 4, shut the door. Are we good at what's in my data.txt file? It's so exciting, isn't it? You guys are loving it, right? Let's go back into my name. Right, I'm going to declare my stream. I'm going to use short syntax this time. So I'm going to say OS stream, F out, and then in the parentheses, I'm going to say data.txt, the file that I want to open. And this time I want to open it in what mode? App. Right, app, which is append mode, right? The reason being is that I don't want it to overwrite, right? I don't want it to overwrite the data in my file, right? So it's going to open it up and start writing on line 3. Right at the end of my file. If I want to output, I'm going to use F out just like I would use what? C out, right? So I can F out and I can say 5, 6, pick up 6, right? And then because I make this class too corny, right? We're going to say 7, 8, 8. C++ what? Great. It all rhymes.
A little bit.
You're like, I don't really feel like that's how you guys feel about C++. But it's good time, right? Like 2 weeks. 2 weeks, and you guys will love it. F-out.close, right? Close my file. Right? And then we can just see out, right? Done appending. Right? Create my output stream, called F out, connected to data.txt and append mode, right? Add some data, right? Close the file and then let the user know that. Does that make sense?
Can you add like a and like type it?
Yes. So I could. So it would work just like we would use any cout stream. So if I had, let's just say int x equals 5, right? If x was 5 here, I could have said output x and then a space in it. So it will just put them in just like we normally do with cout, but this time it's just going to 5. So it should still say 5, 6, pickups. Yeah, right, yeah. 'Cause everything in the file we store is here, right? You can even do, right, 3 plus 2, right? That all works. Just make our code more complicated. Right? This says then appending because really to see what happened, we want to go to data.txt, and what do we get? 5, 6, pick up 6, 7, 8, 8, C plus plus.
True.
What happens when I run my program again?
It's gonna add the last 2 lines again.
Alright? This is opening an append mode, right? When I run it again, right, we're really hammering, right, my run home again, right? Because every time I run the program now, it's appending, right? So it takes what's already there and then adds more.
Give it.
So it could be good, it could be bad, right? Great for log files. Questions there? We good there? One thing I do want to talk about is that as I'm making this, right, sometimes it's nice just to see out at first, right? Because then when I run it, I can very easily see what it is that I'm trying to add.
Why would we want to do this if it's so limited feeling?
The best case for you right now for output is like saving the state of your program. So every time you run your program, all your variables start out at scratch again, right? So you may write a program where you want to save what you've been doing. And so you can write it all out to a file, right? And then you can have a function of the program that when it loads up, you can say, do you want to continue where you left off? And you say, yes, it'll actually read the file and reset all the very common, right? So files are a way to store persistent data, right? I mean, they can store it in databases, which is really persistent data.
Well, like this,
right?
that would be like the FN part, right?
Right.
Like,
but the FL would be storing the data, the FN would be getting it back into your program.
so you would have something that makes FN and FOut talk to each other as well?
Well, they don't talk to each other, they talk to the same file. And you know how your file's set up, so when you output it, you'll know how to. Yeah, grab it, right? It's stored somewhere in some file. So yeah, you write the files down. Good question. All right, one last thing, and then we'll be done. And that is, right, we're making a big assumption, right? Anyone know what assumption we've been making? What? That is a big assumption we're making, but that's not what I'm going for. That's a great answer. When I open a file, right, I'm assuming that what? That it exists, right? The file is there, right? And so probably not the best thing to assume that the file's there. So what we can do is when I open a file, I can check to see if it actually opened or not. As if it didn't, then you have to handle that. Whether that's like, we're done, right? I can't run my program if the file doesn't exist. What? That's what I'm saying. If it doesn't open, you're gonna have to figure out what that means. So is the file intricate to your program? If it is, then you probably just want to crash the program and say, right, file missing. Right? We've all opened up programs that have done that, right? So the program says, I can't find this file, so it doesn't open. Right? It could be that it's just fluff text, right? And so maybe you don't need it. I don't know. That's up to you. Figure out what to do. But it's really easy to check if a file exists, right? We use a function called .fail. .fail returns true if the file does not exist, right? If opening the file failed, it returns true. So we want .fail to be false for everything to work properly. Does that make sense? Right? So .fail is a Boolean function that returns either true or false, whether or not, right, your inputting or your opening failed or not. So here I am, I'm going to open up stuff.txt, but I don't really know if stuff.txt exists or not, right? So I'm going to write a simple if statement, if fin.fail, which will return true if it did not open, it will return false if it did open. Does that make sense? So we're going to see, I'm not saying fin.fail equals true or equals false, right? Because the parentheses of an if statement expect a Boolean. Everyone agree? Mm-hmm. Right? This function returns a Boolean. So it's saying, if this is true, run this, else, right, it'll just continue on like that. Right? So here, it failed, so I tell the user, right, it failed, and then probably you'd write some other code to handle, right? Maybe it's like, if the file exists, I use this data, but if it doesn't exist, I just set up, right, some static data into my variables or something. So that's kind of up to your program what it is that you're going to do. Easy enough? Right? That's like one slide. All right, let's look at an example. We'll be done. Right? Usually, at least right now, you probably won't fail on output because it'll just create the file, right? But on input, a lot of times it can fail. Right? So I'm going to get rid of this. Right? I'm going to say IF stream, input file stream. Right? I'm going to say data.text. Right? As opposed to data.what? TXT.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so this is the way you would write it, right? If fin.fail. Right, then, right, we can just see out, right, error, opening file. Opening file.
Nope.
Opening?
Nice.
Right, and then say, right, return 1. Right, otherwise, right, I would do stuff here. Do stuff here. Very technical term. Right?
Very specific.
Try to open the file. If it failed, inform the user returning when you're in main engine program. Everyone agree? 0 means good. That's down here. 0 means good. Any other number means what? Bad, right? So I'm returning 1 saying something's not working. So if I run it, right, we get running real slow, right? What did I mistype? Oh, I didn't give it a name. Come on, guys. There we go. Now I've actually created it. Right. It says error opening file, and it says process exited with code of what?
1.
But I can go back, right, and I can make it be correct data.txt and run it. And now, right, that's what it's going to do. Usually, you don't want your program to continue if your program is dependent on the file. Right? Next class, we'll learn how to like start reading from a file till the end of it, which is fun because have we talked about ASCII art in here right now? We know what ASCII is though, right? They're the numbers that characters are associated with. So ASCII art is just pictures that are made with just characters, right? So you can store ASCII art like in a file, and then anytime you want to show that picture in your program, you can just read it in.
Is that how people put like big dongs in Twitch chat?
Probably.
Copy pasta?
Chat, so. Yeah, right. If you look up, right, if you just look up ASCII art, we're gonna look at.
Is that like the pixelism, pointillism, or whatever? But
there's a Mario ASCII art.
Yeah. That's how they do it in Twitch.
But it's just characters, right? Which is the only thing that we don't know how to output pictures, but we can output characters. So there are pictures made up of characters.
I think the image form of that is pointillism.
Is that what it is?
Where like you wanted to make a picture of Mount Rushmore of all black and white pictures from all over the
How does one simply do that?
So your last current assignment will be a adventure game. So it's a perfect place for you to go. You found the sword. That's right. And then you can use the alerts to your games.
He did.
I kind of did that in my last semester.
Okay. Any questions on what we learned today?
Catcher. Oh yeah, that.
You ready to see if you actually learned anything?
Oh God.
There's only 3 questions, so.
Oh no.
If you learned it, it probably is really easy. And
It's too many questions.
Then we'll help out. All right, let's look at it. You're going to write a program that outputs to a file the first 15 multiples of 3. So 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, blah, blah, blah. Right? You're going to output it to a file named multiples of 3.txt. Right? If I know how many multiples I want to output, what should I use?
An array thing.
Well, we don't really need an array, but we do need a for loop, right?
Oh, the plus 2.
You could write 15 cout statements, or you could write a 3-line for loop. That's up to you, right? No, my hint is work on the algorithm first and output using cout, then work on output into a file. So there's really 2 things that I'm asking you to do, right? I'm asking you to write the algorithm to output 15 multiples, and I'm also having you connect it to a file. Don't try to do 2 things at once. It gets scary, right? just write cout statements with a for loop to try to get numbers 3 through 45. Does that make sense? And when it looks nice, then you just include a string, you create your output stream, and you just change the C and cout to what? F. And guess what? The rest of it works. Because cout and fout work exactly the same, just one goes to the console and one goes to a file. It will create it for you. Yeah, it will create it for you, so you don't have to create it. First time you run the program, it will create the file. So great. Open the file, write out the data, close the file. All right, step 2, question 2. Open the file, but this time not for writing, but for reading. Read in all of the multiples, which are, there's 15, so you can now use the same for loop. Right, and you're going to add them all together. And once again, you don't need an array.
Why isn't this
right? If you think back to when I taught you for loops, I taught you how to do a running sum, where you take a value, you add it to the sum, and keep doing that. You actually wrote it in your lab for that. All right, so that's what I'm having you do for question 2. Question 3 says, all right, that's great, close the file. Now open the same file again. Better open it in append mode because you're going to be adding stuff, otherwise it'll overwrite the file. All right, and write the next 15 multiples. Once again, probably just write the cout statement to do the next 15 multiples. When it looks good, then change it so it writes to your file. Write, I'll give you a second, Robert. Write 15 multiples of 3 to a file, read them in, and add them together, and I'll put that value. And then step 3 is to write the next 15 multiples to the same file.
So you should only have 2 files there.
There's one file. Just multiples of 3.txt. Same file. You're going to write to the file, you're going to close it, and then you're going to read from that exact same file. So the file is just storing the persistent data between the writing and the reading. You only need one file.
So you can just start it in append mode.
Yes, for question 3. We're going to do it. Your answer is not your answer, but you should get 360. That is the values of the first 15 multiples all added together. Right? Question 2 is not asking for the answer, so don't put 360 in there. But the answer that you should get on output should be 360. All right, so question 2, assuming that you wrote 3 through 45, so 3 plus 6 plus 9 all the way to 45 is 360. If you get some other numbers, then you've done something wrong, which is fine because we can fix it.
multiples of 3 dot. So we need
questions?
So we need to make a CPP first.
You need to make just a main.cpp, right? It will create the file for you.
So
right?
I make a new file and put main in that because there's main already.
There's main already where? I didn't give you any files.
Oh. So this would be the first time we're making a main. Well, there's a main.cpp down here.
Canvas, not on C9.
But yeah, there's just an answer sheet. Questions? We're kind of good with what we're doing? All right. So just like we kind of did today, start from scratch, do an int main, include f string, right? Read the string connected.
I have a main here.
Right? But really, start with just starter.cpp and write the loop that should output the first 15 multiples of 3, right? Don't even worry about files yet, just do that. Right? Once you've done that, then let's work on getting the files.
I already have a main in here, and it has like all the stuff.
I don't know where you are.
Like a lab.
What main? Where'd that make it?
It was down here. It has all this.
Well, yeah, that's
stuff.
just from, these are just the files that you've been doing for forever.
Okay. So just
So I would just copy starter.cpp. Name it lab, whatever.
So I'm gonna open it. Oh, I already have it open. And then just name it the lab one and go from there.
Okay.
That makes more sense.
Where have you been writing your labs at?
Lab 3, 6.
Oh, okay, yeah, there you go, yeah. So just,
If they needed to be written, some
right,
of
yeah,
them
some
haven't
of them,
really.
yeah. Or would they have their own files?
Right.
Kinda. What do you want to start at 0, right? or one. Less. So the first 15 multiples will be, right, and it's going 3, 6, 9, but really you can say 1, 2, 3, 4, right, the first multiple is that. And then you can just, yeah. So the number times 3, you can figure it out. Does that make sense? It's either way. Makes more sense when you see the value actually. You are supposed to be watching all yeah. So there is no void. So everything in H is black.
Oh my god.
Everything in there is already written.
Damn it.
You are just copying. First thing you're doing is copying.
Okay, I did the first step. Kind of. Okay, now I gotta add those together somehow. And then put them in a file.
But we're not copying the bottom anymore, right? You're copying them. Not a keyword class, just.
Do you want us to name multiples of 3?
But this should not have the word class. We'll always copy the function.
How did he do the append? I forget how he Bless you.
Yeah.
CSCI.
It really is going to be fully on. So you can open it to write and write it out. Right? The first one is in the file, data, and so this is yeah, so this is what says open file for writing. Right, that's not next to this has to be yeah, right now. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you didn't have to.
I use it.
You use it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's how you get them to declare right there, right where it says underneath code here. I thought you had to declare those above me.
Well, I did it here.
Yeah.
You would have to do that.
Yeah, I got it.
You would have to do that somewhere in here, but I just using it in the open, just like he showed us here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Like they become the same thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you could have done it there.
Yeah, I'm just gonna do it in main. That'll work better.
I need your
I have no idea what I'm doing right now.
It's pretty easy though.
What?
How long you just started?
Oh.
It's still going. First, is that the right sign?
Yeah, I think
I did it the other way.
That says,
Like,
that says number is less than the
yeah.
Is that what you wanted?
Well, for now, I guess. Because either way, we're gonna have to do 45 entries. The other 15 entries of that.
I didn't write it like that. I wrote a for loop that takes. Well, I tried to.
Oh, okay. I could do it this way and have the
I is 0, and
actual.
then I said I is less than 16. And then I would say I plus, and then inside the for loop, I would say output 3 times I. And then when I get to 16, I would stop. It will display 0 through 45. And then it displays the same. I put inline, so it will display it all the way down.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa.
Okay. Oh, you didn't declare what I was. It's manager.
Oh shit.
Yeah, I had the same problem. Oh, I think I made it worse.
I mean, I still needed to do that.
Now there's something going on.
STD fin has not been declared.
Oh, those. Just delete those. Delete the fin and F out one. Delete both of those.
Why?
Because it's you're supposed to put. Hold on. Using std : of stream and if stream. And then when you put it in main, you put.
I put Fstream here.
Yeah.
Oh,
See?
I see what you mean. I just need to change them, not delete them. I need to change them.
Yeah.
They're just written wrong. Fstream.
As fin's not declared according to the computer.
If.
And then I'm making sure
Hey. Okay.
Now you got less problems.
Oh yeah.
What does that say? Oh, an expected semicolon? Where do you need a semicolon?
Oh, this.
Darn. That should fix it. There you go.
Dude, check that out. Okay, now multiples of 3.
Whoa.
Oh yeah.
Wow, that's a big number. That's 325703.
That's pretty good though.
I mean, it's repeated over and over. But
Right.
you got it in the right file. You put it in the right spot.
I don't think I have that. Click on
No, but you don't do it in the class, right?
You don't know what to put? So you need to do 15 iterations of plus 3 somehow, right? Of multiples of 3, right? So either you need to do the math in your variable or you need the for loop to do plus 3.
I just have one function.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Right.
So you decide which way you do. I chose the variable, right? So that my for loop could just run 15 times. Does that make sense? But I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to do.
Right, but I'm trying to, because right now you're copying way too much stuff. I'm trying to make sure that we have the output to know what to go with.
What if I just read CF first, like you said?
F out means that it outputs to the file, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because when I see out, I get all of them. I just gotta. I have to store the values that I'm creating in this for loop into a variable that I'm gonna have to make real quick.
Okay, so I need to actually do something different here too, I think.
Maybe if you put end line, it'll write it all in order in your file. Instead of writing it all in the same line like it was. See, there you go.
Why is it?
What the why is it 32,567?
3's equals 0. Multiples equals.
They will have as many parameters.
Oh, so that's how you store the values after they go through. And then you just app them into the file, right?
Oh shit.
Well,
Multiples was not declared.
Oh, huh. Mul. Right. I'm getting better at reading the console though.
2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. Oh, you set 3 is equal to 0 and it's adding 2 and it's not. That's why. You haven't set up anything that sets up the multiples of 3. See, now it's just
yeah. No, I'm just checking. Okay, so I still want that to be 0.
Now I just need to write
Multiples plus 2. That's what he said. You need to do that. Nope. That's what I thought I was doing there. Three's equals.
I need to make a local variable. There we go.
I know the stories and I know the revelations.
There we go. That's better. Now I just have to output it into the file. So maybe F out. Maybe that'll help. Run. F out was not declared in this scope.
So first, you just want to make sure you get the template. So you're not going to fill it in. Okay, now.
Somebody's phone is ringing. File changed. Would you like to reload this file? Yeah, I guess. I did it. I wrote it to the file.
I did it. Yeah, I wrote to a file too, but what I needed today was do the multiples.
Oh, you need to do the multiples.
I'm still working my math.
You need to declare a local variable inside the for loop that multiplies the value of I by 3. And then make that, like, you see how you declared multiples out of the for loop? Take that variable and put it in the for loop, declare it in the for loop. And then in the variable multiples, right, you do 3 times I, and since I increases every time the for loop runs, it'll multiply by 3 times 0, 3 times 1, 3 times 2, and so on.
Just put that here.
Yeah, it might work. No? Chris, just try this. Just take the variable multiples, right? Since you just declared it in the for loop, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, set it equal to 3 times I.
The hard thing is, you only have one time.
No, because that's just going to be 1.
No, since I is 0, right, and it increases every single time it runs the for loop.
Yep, that's a
No.
multiple of 1.
3 times I, not 3's times I, like the number 3 times I. Now run it. Oh, what the hell? 42. Why?
Because it was a...
Oh, no. Set it less than 16. I is less than 16. Then it'll output. Well, it has 15.
Starting at 0, so it should be 15.
Yeah, but 15 multiples of 3 goes up to 45. So we have to say 16. Because you're starting at 0. And there it is. And now you just change C out to F out, and it'll output to the file. And then you run it.
That's the final sum.
See, now it's in the file, so when you reload the file, it's right there. Except you have all that up there because you apped it.
Right. You don't have all the numbers. Every time you have a number, it's like you can only remember one number.
But now I gotta figure out how to add them together, kind of. It's the first step, making the thing.
Okay, so I actually had like a breakthrough kind of while I was waiting for it.
Okay. I like breakthroughs.
So that's what my file looks like, but I was using app already, so like my first try saved it or whatever.
So you just leave that line.
But
Leave that file.
so you want to see this first before you see the one that has them all together?
Well,
What is it? I don't understand how you want it to be split up.
Yeah, in what order?
right. Yeah, so that's question 1, right? So if you have it right in the file correctly, take that code and just paste it as the answer to the
Okay,
question.
okay, so you want to see the progression of the addition in the, okay, got it, thank you.
Right, almost breaking it down because it's like, because we're storing it into files, you could write a program that wrote all those files, and then tomorrow you could write a program that read them all in and did stuff. So they really are distinct pieces, not necessarily all the same program.
So I know there's a way that I could have done I equals I plus 2. And did
I
like
plus equals 3 or whatever.
Yeah, to like do the 3 iterations, but my Boolean would have had, or my equality would have had to be in there.
About 345.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure I could have done it, because in my head I was thinking that way, but then this way it makes me, but I don't like that it still started at 0, but it had to go 16.
Yeah, you should start with 1.
Put it 1 and 15.
Well, you go 1 less than 16. Or 1 less than
My logic here is when it adds 0, it's adding nothing. So it'll just add all those numbers and then add 0.
Well, that's for some, but as far as outputting, it will still be outputting something.
You think it'll still do the same
Because 3
thing?
times 0 would be,
0.
right, so you don't want 0, you just want 3.
See, it stops at 42 when you do 1 and 15.
Yeah.
So less than or equal to 50.
It's supposed to go up to 45, right?
Oh, I can do that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
come on.
Oh, hell yeah.
Come on.
Now that feels good. Okay.
Now
I'm not gonna be able to offer you.
perfection.
What language is written on?
Node, James. Which is written in C++.
Okay.
You're 2 layers back. So you're writing C++ and an IDE that is written in JavaScript, which is being interpreted with C++. And then run it on the computer.
kind of inception-y.
Yeah, right.
Okay, cool. So I know that works. I needed to make sure that I had the.
Yeah. So now you have that, copy that in the second one.
On the next one, we just have to read from the file? How does one simply read?
Okay.
It's FN, right?
So now you just change.
How come I cannot edit this? This happened last time.
Oh, it might have froze because you're on an Intel Core 2 Duo.
Oh, you did input file.
To accept input, we do FN, right? So we read the file?
Why is this dying on me?
So you had IS string. IS string is the input file string for stuff in. OS string is for writing. That's wrong. Yes. And then the next one they'll use IS string. That's for here. To read the file. Yeah. You can do it in the same program if you want, but it's almost. You need to treat each of those as their own distinct. Not as, the only thing that relates all of them is that they all touch the same file. If they don't touch each other, they touch the same file. So if you want, you don't have to. You can just comment out there. And start with that. That's what I would do.
I have no idea what's going to happen. Let's see. Nope.
I'm kind of confused about like so can I just literally just read it like just to see how big it is?
Or it's depending on which one.
Okay.
Yeah. So this one's, yeah, like a CLC.
Because you're just putting it out and then you're basically able to create the file automatically. And then from there you can then access it on separate ones if you're done. Okay. Yeah.
So if you create, you put that string.
I'm writing to
the
it.
output file string.
I see.
So you just change that.
Can I ask you about my assignment?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. So I got most of it
Okay.
done. And it's like compiling and stuff, it's fine, but at first, there's something wrong with one of my constructors, because, like, if you go up here, all of these are right, except for this one.
Okay, and the hint I'll give you is that, I hear you saying here is a loader.
Yeah.
But then the upstream is that. I was using calculator, so upstream is about. Right, so the parameter is the value to set the time you set to.
That's right. I declared that as a local variable.
Because, negative 10 meters doesn't exist, right? You can't have negative.
I wrote that down here. Is that not where it should go?
You can.
Why? Why does it do that? Chris, look at this. If I want
Hold on
the
1 second, boss.
It was working for you, but here that is the same here.
I put thin, that's all I had to do, and it would output all this from the file.
Nice.
I'm like, why? I had to do all this and just type thin.
Wait, so it's.
I
I only got it to add to 90.
Well, what's in your code?
My math is too
Output
rough.
looks a lot like.
Threes equals multiples equals, oh no, threes equals multiples plus multiples. Yeah, that should add 3 each time, right? Why is it adding 6 each time?
I know you mentioned.
Right, yeah, I'm trying to think when did we do?
Oh, right. What if I paste that here?
Okay, so it's just that right there, and then that'll put the precision. And then, but the last part that I was confused on was, I'm like not even sure, but are these case sensitive?
Whoops, I think I fucked up.
Is it the two upper?
You use two upper, or you could say unit equals uppercase K, or unit double equals lowercase. So at the very top, where you say double distance, you can also just say, you can also just say unit equals two upper, and then it'll always be uppercase.
And it's in the first.
Yeah. So you say unit equals two upper. Pass it through the whole machine, and you get uppercase.
See, I'm only getting 90.
Yeah. And all.
Is it because the total up for the number 3 is 360?
Yeah, I'm getting to 90 also. Oh, it's only outputting 15 of them. From, you know how the for loop says only to go up to 15? It's only outputting up to 15 values. That's why it's stopping.
I feel like I already did that. Why am I doing it again, you know?
So maybe we have to triple it to 45 values?
Awesome. Because I can handle it.
Alright.
I'm gonna
So
say.
you don't have to do the conversion. If you just call get distance, that happens.
Nope, that didn't work.
So it'll bring the value back. So you just see out, get distance, this, pass in the unit, and then say.
Damn it. I got it. I got it, Chris, but it outputs 61 values. It goes, it takes, it does the multiples, right? And it does 3 times I, which is starts at 0 and it goes up. So I say add those together as it increases. So it goes all the way up to 360, but that's probably not the right way.
No, it's not.
Here's the name of your string. So then here you have out that, and you have out close, that should be. That should be enough to do the answer. Just hit load.
I had that.
So that's working.
Wasn't working at all. So I just let me know and give a message back.
Maybe. Maybe there's this message.
Why load this?
So now, so you close it, great. Now you're gonna open the same file, but this time for medium.
Yeah.
So 0, get that.
You can't create a variable here.
So like here, you should have its own common number. Big variable ones. Here, you never really create variables. You don't create stuff.
So I'm trying to think how I'm going to capture the value before it restarts the for loop. So I've already stored it in a variable called multiples. I just need to take that value and put it somewhere else. So maybe I make a temporary variable.
Is this where he wants us to go into the file and add line 1 to line 2 to line 3 to line 4? We're not doing it like that. We're trying to just do math version of it. I think that's what he wants us to do.
But how do you take the values out of the text file and add them together? I don't know.
What if I just delete this file and rewrite a new one?
Maybe.
Like this.
I'm gonna try it.
Here. Yes.
According to the instructions, he wants us to
Right.
read from the file and then add all the values together.
So that's in here
You do
somewhere.
this, it opens up implicitly, or you can say, let's get that out and then add that.
So this is where we F in.
Mm-hmm.
So here are like two, like the string's already created. Right, so here now you just say, okay. Because you already created the Huddle around, here we go. Here we go. How many variables do you think you need? Because you can't overwrite I, because I you're using the loop, right? So every time you pull in the value, you're actually changing your variable. So you don't want to use I. So we need a different variable. Let's call it input. We'll call it J. Over your for loop, I thought.
When you have another, I'm gonna loop inside of it. Be careful. Because then we're all answering the same question, maybe. Yeah. And input, right? So then, all right, great. So now, if you think about it, every iteration, input has the next value and the text value. So you just have to add them together. But how do you add them all together if you only have one at a time? Well, I'm in the for loop, right? Yeah, input plus equals, right? Well, we don't want to change, because you're gonna overwrite input every time that you use it. So you're gonna need another what? No, not I has nothing to do with anything. I is just.
Because we need to be able to capture the value before it goes out of total.
And your assumptions are what? 0. That was hard to type on that. No, get rid of that. Theme statements only have what you're seeing. So, what it goes up on, where we are, right? Yeah, semicolon, then hit enter. Right, and so sum, right, you're running sum equals or plus equals, it's easier. Right, plus equals what?
You capture the value. Every single time.
And then here, you won't see our input, you'll see our well. Also. Do that.
Oh, that's a fair one.
Right. So that, well, okay, so this is why it's a big number. You're starting at 0 and you go until it's less than 46, so you're looping 45
Oh, yeah.
times.
So you get less than 6.
We don't have values. Oh, actually make it less than 50.
Yeah, less than.
No, he started at 0.
Oh,
It has to be less than that. There you go, now run it, and then you won't get a bunch of extra garbage that we don't want.
Oh, that made it worse.
Well, what is your file? Let me see your file.
I might have
Yeah, you know, value.
That's why that's our-
There you go. Yeah, you
Got it.
You gotta make 3 freaking
I can do.
variables.
You can literally just write quotations, multiples of 3, and it'll just output all of what you did in the CPP file straight to that file.
Two's the hard part.
I had it right, except for like a very small syntax.
And then all of a sudden everything's like all.
You know, just kind of like I was on it for like 10 minutes, confused, like, changing from like, what time to.
Is your softball game go?
Oh, I did one point to What?
So that's good for.
Yeah, so like, I mean, our was that, so like, crappy system for that, so.
That's like the worst part about softball. They're trying to get you.
Now I'm getting 120.
It's the type of thing like.
Close. Oh, you know why? I think that my file has nothing in it. Probably. Now I think I can do this all in one thing.
Yeah, defense is good, except you also have like injuries and like people are trying to.
So that takes the first number, it takes the first number on the first iteration and it assigns it to input.
So my stuff's not, it's only going to 120 for number 2?
Okay. What does your file look like?
I deleted it so it would be fresh.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's see your code.
So okay, so here's the thing, I ran it once.
Whoa.
Yeah. But I had this commented out so I could just see out.
Right, yeah.
So then I just deleted the file to reset it and uncommented that out to see if this would pull those values. So I don't know if I need to run it one more time.
Well, where are you pulling in the values from the file?
So, yeah, it's doing 2 lines.
Oh, I haven't done that yet. So that's just giving me 120 randomly, and I'm going to get probably be a different.
Well, I don't see any input statements. Like, I don't see any greater than symbols in your code, right?
Greater than? Oh, no, you don't.
So you're,
So this needs to be F in.
use space. Yeah, there you go. When you get rid of the I, it equals I at the end.
Okay.
Oh, you're close.
It's probably because of that.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be
Zero, yeah.
size.
Yeah. 0 less than size if you want to go that many times.
Oh, there it goes.
Yes.
2 done.
Okay.
Oh, plenty of time left. You guys are rocking it.
Okay, good.
Well, right now I'm writing to the file. I'm not outputting though. What'd you do there, Chris?
What?
What'd you do?
Oh, I'll show you in a second.
Right now I'm just writing to the file. It's not letting me
You still
output.
want to learn how to do it? Okay, well,
Okay. Where are you?
I'm right here. I'm taking this value, right, and I'm storing it in input, and I'm adding that to sum, and I made sum equals 0. And then I'm outputting input into the file. So,
Right. You're touching. Okay.
so when I run it, right, it stores all that.
Go back, because I don't need to see all that. I already saw things
Okay.
you could work on. Okay. So first off, you want to let me look at mine just to see. Because I don't want you to see this yet. I want you to
Okay.
have it click. Because that's how I got it. So for mine, I only have 2 lines of code in this loop. So
Okay.
one is, how are you reading what line from your file you're adding to the next line? Where is that in here? That's your first one.
It's not in there.
So that uses, just like CN would from a user.
I would do
That's-
F in.
That's what, yes.
Yep.
So that's where you want to put that in your,
Let me move that up here.
it's a separate loop, by the way. You want your original loop still, because that's how it put the values in there. Does that make sense?
Okay, I
So
didn't
this should
make
be a
another
new
note.
loop
Okay.
with its own variables.
But you're not getting I right
Sum and input or whatever, like
Yeah.
we watched. Initialize that, by the way.
Yeah. Int.
Yeah, there you go.
And it goes int I is. I'm just gonna put
Less than size, 15.
Yeah. And then I plus.
Yeah. Okay, curlies. Okay, so inside this, I
Gotta
only
be
have
F
2
in
lines.
somewhere.
Yeah, so you're gonna F in from your file the value input. And you know why, right?
What's that?
Because that is your value that you're using that's not initialized until it gets there. So it's taking
Got it.
3 and adding it to 6. And then it's going to take 6 and add 9 to it. And then it's going to take that value and add the next. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you're going 3 plus 6 is 12, plus 9 is blah, 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 plus this, and that gives you 360.
And I'm just gonna output sum over here
Exactly.
and see what happens. F in input. Oh, it needs a semicolon.
You need your, well, no, just like CN, you need your
Those are the
symbols.
values, those ones getting CI.
That's the wrong
Other
one.
way, yeah.
Oh. Oh no. I need to set this.
Something's off somewhere, maybe what.
It's
maybe
probably this. It's probably this.
Your file or something too.
Probably
There
this.
you go.
No. What's in my file?
You know what you could
Yeah, in
do?
my. Oh, it has a 0 up there.
Mine does too, I think.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't.
So I think you're going
It's starting at 3.
All right. I need to start my I at 1 then.
Where's mine? Yeah, it starts at 1, it's less than or equal.
Yep. There he goes.
Boom.
Nah, so you're gonna use I for the loop and not inside the number. Good, so.
That was a nope. Have you done one?
Well, yeah, we have to bring numbers, right? Think about it. To get a value, it's only for numbers.
Okay, so
So the values come from files.
so for this you need 1 variable for the first one. Because right now you just want to be able to see in your file of multiples of 3 text. You want to be able to see
Get the first value.
3, 6, 9, 12, all the way to 45, right? That's your first. You want that code first. So in that loop, you need a variable or a value. So outside of the loop. No. You already initialized it. You need a different one. That actually is what's supposed to be here. Instead of replacing that. 1.7. put it inside a value, or just change that to value to 0. That's just, the loop is separate from the variable.
Yeah.
Erase 27. Now, I equals. There. Okay, now you're set there. You need a variable that you can store a value in to add 3 to. To make multiples of 3. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you need to create a variable, an integer. So just, I don't know, name it whatever you want. I name mine multiples. No. You need to, in your code, create a variable. And name mine. Yeah. Okay. Now what you're gonna do is in your loop, your sign is backwards, right? Yeah. So in your loop, you're gonna need to say, you're gonna need to do multiples equals, and then your multiple operator. Well, yeah, you need this, whatever this math is, you need to be stored somewhere, and that's why you made this. No. Yeah, that, because you want that math operation to be with that value so it can be put in each line. Does that make sense? The next thing you're missing is putting it into the file. And how would you put it out? Yeah, but that needs to be, you want that to be done each iteration, so each line gets its value. So it can go 3, 6, 9, 12. Does that make sense? Yeah. You need that in the board. Also, I need this in the board. Yeah.
That meters is a function, right? But if we're doing it in the board of our code, right? Here's this.
You need to F out you need your value that you're creating to be put in each line that you want to make. So that's what you need to do there. It's not I that you're putting out, it's
Right, but when we're writing what a function does.
Yeah, so hold on. Go back to your erase the break lines.
So I'm in the process of
No, you don't need the value. You don't need 1 and 2 at all because it's not those numbers. Right. The other way you can do this though is erase a second. So now actually do another set and then do inline. Yeah. Might be a little off before. Wait. No, it's not that part. It's the actual file. Okay, so you don't want to do this area when it starts. So I would just use
class now. My functions called outlook.
That way it starts just under
outlook current value. So it's outlook current value of the function can be part of less than equal. Yours is the same distance function. Is part of the distance. So here you would be the meters function, right? It is part of
boom. There you go, bro. That's the code he wants for number 1.
No, we want that for the
I still need to do number 3.
Oh,
are you good? Okay. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I didn't want to just say look at my paper because that would be not.
Then I want to understand.
Yeah, exactly.
You outputted it with the F out thing?
Yeah, dude, you can look. Just come over here. It's not really wanting to turn. Okay, write a program to add the next 15 of your file.
So basically,
Does it go below main? Is that what I'm like doing wrong? No?
No, this is just this code right here. Boom. Each loop is only has 2 lines of code.
So
I'm C outing some,
So
but I
basically
can
you
F
just
out
said-
as well.
So I should really have, like right here, I should have F out and just X. But then it
So
doesn't
are
know
you
where
trying
go.
to just see 3, 6, 9, 12? Are you just wanting to see
I just want
multiples of
these
3?
in the multiples of 3 file. It's like the first part. Like I wrote this
okay.
code.
So basically you're F outing your value, your variable, but that's getting stored. The math operation's getting stored in this variable. Like I'm assigning the multiple of 3, right? And I'm using the iteration so that I know I'm gonna go 15 times, right? So that's what I'm doing is I'm using multiples of 3 by timesing the iteration. So it's giving me 3, 6, 9, 12,
Yeah,
right?
my for
And
loop
from
is
there,
good.
that value's getting stored, and then I'm C outing that value, but I'm F outing it into my file instead of C outing.
Okay, so I could just literally
Right,
just
that's-
write F out right here.
Yeah,
You wanna
because
do C out,
you
C
did all this stuff.
Okay, and then you change
Does that make
it
sense?
to,
Like you wrote all this stuff so that you can use F out when you want.
That makes sense.
But that's why I wanted to go over that so you knew what was happening instead of.
So you basically see now that's where it changes.
So you
F out
may or may not
multiplies
have written
zero.
something wrong or initialized so that you can or can't use F out.
Because I have this thing right here, the F string.
Yeah, but
and
you're
then I
missing a
have-
lot of stuff, I think.
So you literally should just copy and paste like all of that part basically.
Well, I didn't copy paste it, I wrote it out, but I was looking at a couple different things. I looked in
Yeah.
here, and also some stuff from in
Okay.
here helped too.
Because that's like basically part of your like variable declaration. or the
Right. You
string
need to be able
declaration.
to use this, and to use it, you need to call that object so you can use that.
Yes. Because otherwise it's not declared.
Right.
You have to
That
declare
makes,
it in
and that's
main.
what it's saying, is that it's not
Exactly.
declared. So
Yeah.
you would do like
So even though you did everything right in your loop, you missed
the key point.
Yeah, exactly.
So
You missed the
do
part that
if
let you talk to
string,
another file.
then-
I need to read number 3 really quick so that I can do that while you're.
Yeah.
Right before I'm gonna add the next 15 multiples of 3 to your.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not kicking you out. If you need help, let me know, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, so Chris, for this one, all you gotta do is just increase this less than like 30. Because it doubles.
This one?
Both of them. Because you want to add all 30 of them in the next for.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna create 30 of them, and then you're gonna add 30 of them. That's it. And then when you run it, it should be like 1,395.
Let's see.
What?
Hold on. It started over.
You wrote a shit ton of things in that file.
Yeah. Let me just.
Yeah, you might want to delete that and try again.
Delete.
Deleted.
Does anyone watch that?
Yeah. Okay, now it should write to the file, and it should say, there it is.
Sick. That's it.
Yeah. You're done. You're free. You're free to play some Fortnite.
Yeah, right. I have work and like 14,000 hours of classwork to do.
Oh, I have 14,001 hours. I'm just trying to figure out what he wants us to do
Did you get
first.
to hear me explain that? He was kind of. You had the part. You guys, if you guys were to have combined your programs, you would have been fine.
You both had like
If
half of
anything,
it.
that helped me learn it better, helping you guys. I'm down with it, dude. I'm super down with it.
Because once you explain, yeah, I mean, you can understand it, but once you explain it out loud, it makes more sense. And this laptop is a piece of crap.
Yeah, you are. What?
You're not good.
1 meters. 1.meters needs to be initialized. Where would I put that? Oh, I didn't establish that
Nice.
so much information.